We in America have some of the cleanest air and cleanest water of anybody in the world. That's right. So what we do is we're gonna put from the Green New Deal millions or billions of dollars cleaning our good air up. So all of a sudden China and India ain't putting nothing in there cleaning that situation up. So all that bad air is still there. But since we don't control the air, our good air decided to float over to China, bad air. So when China gets our good air, their bad air gotta move. So it moves over to our good air space. And now we gotta clean that back up.
So that is Herschel Walker, who I'm gonna say is gonna be a senator in a couple of months, probably, because America 2022, all of that. Talking about the Green New Deal, talking about good air and bad air and how it moves around and how when the bad air goes into one room, the good air has to run and all that. Look, that's a crazy half thought delivered poorly. It's not necessarily one of the craziest things that Herschel Walker has ever said, but let's be clear about the substance of it. He is using this bad Chinese air argument to argue for not worrying about the environment, even locally, not worrying about regulations on a variety of different atmospheric pollutants, obviously not doing anything about carbon, surrendering in the face of the climate crisis. And I would argue that a senator's position on this kind of consequential. We don't have a lot of evidence in the recent history to imply that the Senate plans on doing anything, but if they ever do, if a fire is ever put under their asses to do something about this, we kind of need to have a majority. And so he is telegraphing in advance of this election that he, first of all, doesn't understand anything about this, but to the extent that he pretends to, he doesn't believe that we should be regulating these things, Jessica. And I personally think that that's a bad sign.
It's a terrible sign, but as a Republican running for public office, why would you have a straightforward stance on climate change? Why would you think through the issue when you can just blame China? It's so much easier, John. But seriously, it's a ridiculous case to make. The good air goes and replaces the bad air, and then we get the bad air. This is such a simplistic explanation of global climate, and the fact that he even attempted it is insane to me. It's really insane to me. But let's be real, like we need to think about extreme weather. We really do. And he goes on to talk about the Green New Deal, and I think we'll get into that. But everyone's so triggered by the Green New Deal because it's a good idea. It's much better to actually have a plan if you're taking public office, actually do something for your constituents. I mean, the Green New Deal is probably one of the best policy platforms the left has. And it's popular if you explain it to people by any other name than the Green New Deal. People think it's a really good idea because the way that money creation happens is we outsource it to private banks. They lend it out to investors and businesses. They're driven by profit motives. They're not gonna invest in renewable energy. They have no profit motive to do so. They're gonna keep investing in building out their oil companies. And so we really need our government to use their power to create dollars to fund public programs, to build renewable energy. It has an extremely high return on investment economically. Yep. And also it's good for human life, which is something we should consider when we're thinking about, making policy and becoming a senator.
Yeah, since we are humans and we theoretically intend to go on living, I sort of understand why some of the older politicians don't seem to have much of a vested interest. They're apparently willing to consign their descendants to an apocalyptic hellscape. But I'm still at least moderately youngish, so I don't want that. And so, yeah, getting someone in office who actually understands a variety of benefits that, as Jessica pointed out, that could come from the Green New Deal, not only purely environmental, but economic as well. Seems kind of important. Herschel Walker is not, let's keep it real. He's not capable of understanding that, as Dr. Rashad Ritchie pointed out. He's a dumbass. That's a fundamental issue. And he's not gonna be unique in elected office with that position. But yeah, good air, bad air, why not just give up? No, look, to the extent that he has any point, yes, the effort, particularly to stop global climate change, has to be an international thing. Arguably, fighting against all different sorts of environmental pollutants, whether the efforts back in the 80s and 90s having to do with the ozone layer and acid rain and all that, to carbon today, that does have to be an international thing. But we also, as an individual country, put out a very significant portion of the world's carbon, and so yes, it's still important for us to do something about it. And the effects are not purely global. There are tons of just national and local effects of this sort of pollution, which we're gonna get into because he made a bold claim there. He said, our air and water is the best in the world. And there's nothing conservatives love more than pretending we've already solved problems that they are actively standing in the way of solutions for. America's air, to be clear, is much cleaner than it used to be, but it's not the cleanest. And recent data suggests that air pollution is in fact increasing once again. By one particular metric, fine particulate pollution, the US ranks 10th in air quality. New Zealand, Canada, Australia, and several European countries can boast clear skies. Now, we have improved, and you can see in this map over time, a little graph basically of how that has worked out. There was a lot more pollution back in the 80s, but to be clear, we didn't improve because we just thought good things about America and our exceptionalism. The federal government and state and local governments put into place new regulations to make it so. And he is specifically talking about giving up on that, on rolling back. So he is trumpeting something that we haven't already solved. We don't have perfectly clean air, but to the extent that we do, it's because of the things that he now wants to kill. And this is incredibly consequential. I apologize that I'm boring you about the environment, especially so early on in the show, but deaths related to air pollution fell by about 30% between 1990 and 2010. Despite these gains, more than about a third of Americans, 110 million, still live in counties with unhealthy levels of pollution, and about 100,000 Americans die prematurely each year of illnesses caused or exacerbated by that pollution. Now, I understand it's gonna be hard to get America to get really worked up about 100,000 needless deaths when it was perfectly happy to throw 1 million Americans onto a gigantic heap during the pandemic, but I would argue it's something worth doing something about. Jessica, what do you think?
Yeah, let's put this in Herschel Walker terms, right? Good pollution policy makes good air. Republicans want to do bad pollution policy and replace the good air with bad air.
Exactly.
There we go.
How about this? Bad brain get pushed out by good brain. Bye-bye, bad brain. I think you might have been extending him too much goodwill in your explanation. Anyway, oh, by the way, just to put a little final point on this, a reminder, and I was out of town when this was being covered, but Francesca did a great job of covering it. The Supreme Court recently restricted the EPA's authority to mandate carbon emissions reductions, but don't worry, I'm sure that's where they'll end in their hamstring of the EPA. That'll be it from here on out.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.